They say freezing to death is peaceful at the end. You stop shivering. You stop feeling the pain. You just drift away into the white noise. Chloe was ready to drift. At 24, homeless, and fired from her third job this month because of a medical condition she couldn't control, she had nowhere left to go. The Colorado blizzard warning was screaming on everyone's TVs about a code blue, but Chloe was right in the middle of it, sitting on a park bench, her eyelashes already heavy with ice. She wasn't trembling anymore. She was fading. Suddenly, blinding lights cut through the darkness. The roar of a heavy diesel engine shattered the silence of the storm. A door slammed, and heavy boots crunched through the snow with military precision. A massive figure appeared in the blizzard, Jack. He was a man built by hard labor and war, with a scar on his chin and eyes that had seen too much. He didn't ask for permission. He grabbed Chloe by the shoulders and shook her with a necessary violence, his voice booming over the howling wind. "Hey! Look at me! Can you hear me? You're gonna die if you stay out here like this. Get up! Now!" Chloe opened her eyes, dazed, seeing only a furious silhouette. She tried to speak, but her lips were frozen shut. Jack didn't wait for an answer. He scooped her up as if she were a rag doll and ran toward his truck, throwing her into the passenger seat and slamming the door to shut out the cold. Most people would have kept driving that night. Most people look away because it's easier than getting involved. But Jack isn't most people. If you believe we have a duty to stop for those who can't walk anymore, leave a like and subscribe. Let's show the world that compassion isn't dead. Watch until the end to see the request this stranger makes that changes their lives forever. Inside the truck, the heater was blasting, but the tension was thicker than the ice outside. Jack jumped into the driver's seat, wiping snow from his tactical jacket, breathing heavily. In the back seat, 7-year-old Mia leaned forward, clutching a worn-out teddy bear, her big eyes wide with fear. "Is she dead, Daddy?" she whispered. Jack checked Chloe's pulse, weak, but there. "No, baby," he replied, his voice raspy. "She's just very cold. We're taking her to the shelter on 5th Street. Don't touch her." Jack shifted gears and the truck slid onto the treacherous road. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He was angry, not at the woman, but at the situation. Jack was a widower, a former Marine who survived by keeping chaos away from his daughter. And now, chaos was sitting in his passenger seat, dripping melting snow onto his leather upholstery. Just then, the radio beeped with an emergency alert. All shelters in Denver County are at capacity. Roads to the city center are closed due to pileups. Jack slammed his hand on the steering wheel. "Damn it!" Beside him, Chloe began to shake violently as her body went into rewarming shock. She started mumbling, delirious from hypothermia. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. Don't fire me, please. I can work." Jack frowned. He recognized that fear. It wasn't the fear of the cold. It was the fear of hunger. The fear of someone used to being discarded. "Hey," he said, his tone gruff but less aggressive. "Nobody is firing you. Drink this." He forced some black coffee from his thermos into her mouth. Mia was staring at the stranger with an intensity that made Jack nervous. "Daddy," she said softly. "Mom used to say that angels get cold too when they lose their wings." Jack froze for a second. The mention of his late wife, Sarah, felt like a punch to the gut. He stared at the icy road, trying to keep his emotional armor intact. "She's not an angel, Mia. She's a homeless woman who made a bad decision. We're gonna find a police station." "But the police station is scary," Mia insisted. "And cold. Remember when Uncle Mike got arrested? He said it smelled like sadness." "You can't leave her in a sad place, Daddy. Look at her shoes." Jack looked down. Chloe was wearing canvas sneakers wrapped in plastic grocery bags. He knew exactly how much pain those feet were in. He had seen frostbite in the service. The war inside him lasted 10 seconds. The sergeant said, "Drop the package, not your mission." The father said, "She is someone's daughter." Jack let out a long, resigned sigh and spun the wheel to the left, heading up the mountain dirt road. "We're not going to the police station," he grunted. "We're going home, just for tonight. Tomorrow morning, she's gone." The arrival at Iron Creek Ranch was brutal. The wind nearly tore the truck door off its hinges. Jack carried Chloe into the house, a place that smelled of pine wood and loneliness. It was a practical house, functional but soulless since Sarah passed. He dumped Chloe on the sofa, throwing 3 heavy wool blankets over her, and lit the fireplace. "Go upstairs, Mia," he ordered. "Pajamas, now." As the fire crackled, Chloe finally woke up properly. The warmth hit her face, and panic rose in her throat. She tried to sit up, her head spinning. Where am I?" she stammered, pulling the blankets tight. Jack stood by the fireplace holding a mug of steaming soup, looking like an immovable mountain. "Easy," Jack said, his voice deep but surprisingly quiet. "You're at Iron Creek Ranch. I found you turning into an icicle on Route 9. You safe?" Chloe nodded slowly, still trembling, taking the mug he offered. I think so. Thank you." Jack watched her for a second, assessing her like a soldier assesses a civilian in a war zone. "Good. Drink the soup. The storm is bad, so you're stuck here tonight. But I've got to run into town at 08 a.m. sharp. I'll drop you off at the sheriff's station. They can help you find a shelter." Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. She took a sip to hide her face. "The sheriff's station?" she thought, terror gripping her chest. "I don't have an ID. I don't have a home to go back to since the landlord changed the locks. If he drops me there, I'm just another vagrant on the street." But she couldn't say that. She just whispered, "Okay. Thank you for the ride." Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen. Jack flinched, his exhaustion instantly turning into frustration. He marched into the kitchen with Chloe limping behind him. Mia was standing over a puddle of milk and broken glass, her eyes wide with terror. She knew her father wasn't mean, but lately, his fuse was short. "Daddy," she sobbed. "I just wanted water. I slipped." Jack ran a hand down his face, closing his eyes. The stress of the dying cattle and the sleepless nights was boiling over. He took a breath, about to snap, about to say, "Why can't you be careful?" But before he could speak, Chloe moved. She ignored the pain in her frozen feet and knelt down right in the milk puddle, reaching Mia's eye level. Hey, shh," Chloe soothed, her voice soft and melodic. "It's okay. It's just gravity. Gravity is a bully sometimes." Mia stopped crying, sniffing loudly. "It is?" Chloe smiled, picking up a shard of glass carefully. "Oh, absolutely. It pulls things down just to mess with us. But look, we can beat it. We just wipe it away, and it's like it never happened." Chloe noticed that Mia had a lot of big feelings but no way to let them out. So, she introduced Mia to her own coping mechanism, a video diary. Chloe showed Mia her old cracked phone she used to record her thoughts when the world got too loud. "When you're scared or happy, just tell the camera," Chloe whispered to her. "It's like putting your memories in a safe." Mia took that to heart immediately. She started carrying her tablet everywhere, quietly recording the cows, the snow, and the little moments of this new family she didn't want to forget. Jack just thought she was playing games. He didn't know she was documenting the truth. Jack stood in the doorway, the scolding dying in his throat. He watched this stranger, a woman who had almost died an hour ago, comforting his daughter with a patience he hadn't felt in years. He saw Mia's shoulders relax. He saw a mother's touch in a house that had forgotten what that felt like. Jack didn't say a word. He just grabbed a broom, swept up the rest of the glass in silence, and pointed upstairs. "Bedtime. Both of you." The next morning, the sun rose over a world buried in white. Jack was already in the kitchen, drinking black coffee, wearing his heavy work coat. He looked like a man preparing for battle. Chloe walked in, wearing the oversized flannel shirt he had lent her, looking nervous. She had folded the blankets perfectly and even washed the mugs from the night before. "Truck's warming up," Jack said, not looking at her. "Get your shoes. I'm taking you to the station." Chloe nodded, feeling the heavy stone of dread in her stomach. "Right. Thank you again, Jack, for saving me." She turned to grab her plastic bags, ready to face the freezing homeless life again. "Wait," Jack said. The word hung in the air. He turned around, looking at her. Really looking at her. He thought about the calving season starting today. He thought about the 18-hour shifts in the snow. And he thought about how Mia had stopped crying the moment Chloe spoke to her last night. "My nanny quit," Jack said abruptly. 2 days ago. She said the ranch was too lonely. Chloe blinked, confused. "I'm sorry?" Jack took a step closer. "I need to be in the barn pulling calves for the next week. I can't do that and watch Mia. I was going to drop you off, but I saw how you handled her last night. You're good with her." He paused, making a decision that went against all his protective instincts but solved his immediate problem. "I'm offering you a job. Temporary. 1 week. You stay here, keep Mia fed, keep her safe, and keep the house standing while I work. I'll pay you $500, but listen to me. I have eyes everywhere on this property, and I'll be checking in on the radio every hour. If you hurt her, there is nowhere in these mountains you can hide." Chloe stood there, stunned. A job? A warm house? It wasn't just money. It was a lifeline. "I'll do it," she said quickly, maybe too quickly. "I mean, yes, I can help. I promise." Jack nodded, putting his hat on. "Good. Don't make me regret this. Breakfast is in the fridge." He walked out into the snow, leaving Chloe standing in the warmth, safe for the first time in months. The first 48 hours at Iron Creek Ranch were defined by a silence that was loud enough to hear. It wasn't the silence of peace, it was the silence of two people guarding secrets. Jack was a ghost in his own home. He would leave before the sun came up, disappearing into the white void of the blizzard to battle the elements, and return only after dark, smelling of hay, blood, and exhaustion. He treated Chloe not like a guest, but like a piece of equipment he had rented. Necessary, but temporary. Chloe, on the other hand, was living in constant fear. She hadn't told him the truth. She hadn't told him about the narcolepsy. In her mind, if this stern, practical ex-Marine knew she could drop unconscious at any moment of high stress, he wouldn't just fire her. He would throw her out into the snow to protect his daughter. So she masked it. She drank cup after cup of coffee to keep her tremors at bay. She pinched her own arms until they bruised whenever she felt the sleep attacks coming. She was terrified that if she wasn't useful and normal for even a second, the deal would be off. But amidst this tension, something magical was happening with Mia. The little girl, starved for maternal attention, attached herself to Chloe like a shadow. They built forts out of sofa cushions. They baked cookies that turned out a little burnt but tasted like happiness. For Mia, the stranger wasn't a homeless woman hiding a medical condition. She was a new best friend. But secrets in a small house are like ticking time bombs. The explosion happened on Thursday afternoon. The blizzard had intensified, burying the fences. Inside, the heating system was struggling. Chloe was in the kitchen, boiling a large pot of water for pasta while keeping an eye on Mia. Suddenly, the kitchen lights flickered and died. The power was out. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. The silence was absolute. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in Chloe's chest. Darkness was a trigger. The feeling of being trapped was a trigger. Her breathing became shallow. "Not now," she pleaded with her own brain, digging her nails into her palms. "Please, not now. He'll find out." But the chemical switch in her head didn't care about her pleas. As she tried to reach for the flashlight, her knees buckled. The world tilted sideways. Her muscles lost all tone, and she collapsed onto the kitchen tiles with a dull thud, falling into a sudden, uncontrollable sleep right next to the hot stove. Mia screamed, "Chloe! Chloe, wake up!" 15 minutes later, the back door flew open. Jack stomped in, covered in snow, holding a flashlight. He had seen the house go dark from the barn. "Mia! Where are you?" he shouted. "Daddy! In the kitchen!" "She won't wake up!" Mia cried out. Jack ran into the kitchen, his beam of light cutting through the gloom. He saw the scene that every parent dreads, the pot of water boiling over on the gas stove, which was still lit, and Chloe lying on the floor, motionless. Jack didn't see a medical condition. He saw negligence. He saw a woman he had picked up off the street passed out while his daughter was screaming. His mind immediately went to the worst-case scenario. Drugs. He turned off the stove violently and knelt beside Chloe, shaking her hard. "Hey, what is wrong with you?" Chloe gasped, her eyes fluttering open, disoriented, the dream state clashing with the harsh reality of Jack's angry face illuminated by the flashlight. I fell," she mumbled, trying to sit up, her limbs feeling like lead. "You passed out!" Jack roared, the fear for his daughter turning into rage. "You left the gas on! You left my daughter alone in the dark! Are you high? Did you find something in the medicine cabinet? Tell me the truth!" Chloe scrambled back against the cabinets, tears streaming down her face. The gig was up. "No, I'm not high," she cried, her voice cracking. I have narcolepsy. It's a neurological disorder. The power went out. I got scared. My brain just shut down." Jack stopped, the flashlight beam shaking in his hand. "Narcolepsy? You didn't tell me you had a condition that makes you pass out. You're watching my child." "I know," Chloe sobbed, hugging her knees. "I didn't tell you because I knew you wouldn't hire me. I knew you'd leave me at the police station. I needed the money, Jack. I needed a place to stay. I'm sorry. I tried to fight it. Please, don't throw me out." Jack stared at her. The anger drained out of him, replaced by a complex mix of relief and frustration. She wasn't an addict. She was desperate. He looked at Mia, who was clinging to Chloe's arm, defending her. "She didn't take medicine, Daddy. She got scared like me. She's just sleepy." Jack looked back at Chloe. He saw the genuine terror in her eyes. He remembered the war. He remembered soldiers who hid injuries because they didn't want to be sent home. He recognized the survival instinct. He slowly lowered the flashlight. "You lied to me," Jack said, his voice rough but quiet. "That's dangerous, Chloe." "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry." Jack sighed, a long exhale that seemed to deflate the tension in the room. He sat down on the kitchen floor, right there in the dark, next to her. "Sit down, Mia," he said softly. His daughter crawled into his lap. "We're not going anywhere. We're going to wait for the generator to kick in. And Chloe," he looked at her, "next time, you tell me. I can deal with a medical condition. I can't deal with lies. You're not fired, but you're not hiding anything from me ever again. Understood?" Chloe looked at him, stunned by the mercy she didn't expect. "Understood," she breathed. That night changed everything. The secret was out, and with it, the wall between them crumbled. Over the next 2 days, Jack started coming home earlier. He started talking. At dinner, under the warm glow of the repaired lights, he told stories not of the war, but of the ranch. Chloe shared her own stories, about her dreams of being a writer before her life fell apart. But the true test of their bond came on the 6th night. The storm had passed, but the temperature plummeted to 20 below zero. It was 2 a.m. when Chloe heard the back door open. She went down, wrapping her robe tight. Jack was standing by the sink, covered in grime, looking defeated. "It's the heifer, number 402. She's having a breech birth. The calf is stuck. The vet can't make it. If I can't pull that calf out in the next hour, I lose them both." That cow, she was Sarah's favorite. He wasn't asking for help. He was confessing his helplessness. But Chloe didn't hesitate. "I'm coming with you. It's 20 below, Chloe, and with your condition, if you get stressed, I have 1 pill left. I was saving it for an emergency. This is an emergency. Let's go save Sarah's cow." The next hour was a blur of freezing wind and physical struggle in the barn. Chloe held the flashlight and the towels, fighting the cold, keeping her mind sharp while Jack worked with the strength of 10 men. When the calf finally slid out, alive, Jack collapsed back against the stall. He looked up at Chloe. She was shivering, covered in straw, but she was standing tall. In that moment, Jack realized he wasn't looking at a broken girl. He was looking at a partner. They walked back to the house under the starlight, not as employer and employee, but as a unit that had just defeated death. Before we see the threat that arrives the next morning, I have a question for you. Jack forgave Chloe for hiding her condition because he understood her desperation. Have you ever had to hide a part of yourself just to get a job or be accepted? Or have you ever judged someone who was just trying to survive? Let me know in the comments with yes or no. Real strength is often just the refusal to give up. The next morning was the 7th day. The roads were finally clearing. The deal was up. Chloe packed her plastic bag, her heart heavy. She walked into the kitchen where Jack was staring out the window at a black luxury sedan slowly making its way up the icy driveway. "Jack?" Chloe asked. "Who is that?" "I don't know," Jack replied, tense. "Go upstairs." The doorbell rang. Jack opened it to reveal a man in a tailored wool coat. Uncle Robert. He had silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, well," the stranger said smoothly. "Jack Miller. And the fugitive. You have no idea how hard it is to track someone without a credit card." Chloe gasped, backing away. "Uncle Robert? You know this guy?" Jack asked, stepping in front of her. "Know him?" Robert laughed, pulling a thick legal document from his coat. I'm her legal guardian, and I'm the conservator of her estate. Chloe isn't just a homeless girl, Mr. Miller. She's the heiress to the Callahan fortune. But unfortunately, he tapped the paper. She is mentally unfit to manage it. I have a court order here, signed by Judge Harrison and supported by Dr. Evans's psychiatric evaluation. It states that due to her severe narcolepsy and delusional episodes, she is a danger to herself and must be returned to my custody immediately. Chloe shook her head violently. That's a lie. I'm not delusional. He paid that doctor. He just wants control of the trust fund. Robert's smile vanished. He looked at Jack with cold eyes. Mr. Miller, this is a valid court order from the state of New York. You have two choices. Hand over my ward, or I call the sheriff and have you arrested for kidnapping a mentally incapacitated adult. You have 5 minutes. The silence in the hallway was heavier than the blizzard that had just passed. The air in the ranch house, usually warm and smelling of pine, now felt suffocating. Jack stood like a stone wall between the man in the expensive wool coat and the woman he had just started to trust. Robert looked at his Rolex with the arrogance of someone who owns time, tapping his foot impatiently, while Chloe trembled against the wall, looking like a trapped animal waiting for the hunter's shot. The 5-minute deadline hung in the air like a guillotine blade, ready to sever the fragile life she had built here. Jack didn't move. He turned his back to Robert, refusing to give the man the satisfaction of his attention, and looked directly at Chloe. His eyes were hard, searching her face for the woman who had helped him birth a calf in sub-zero temperatures. You lied to me again, he said, his voice low but cutting deep into the silence. We sat on that kitchen floor, Chloe. I asked you for the truth. You told me about the narcolepsy and I accepted it. But you conveniently forgot to mention that you're a runaway heiress with a bounty on your head? You promised me, Chloe. No more secrets. Chloe wiped a tear from her cheek, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she clutched the hem of her flannel shirt. I didn't lie to hurt you, Jack. I lied to survive. Please, try to understand, she pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. Think about it. If I had told you on the first night, hey, I'm not a homeless girl. I'm a billionaire heiress running from an evil uncle. What would you have done? You would have looked at my dirty clothes, my frozen shoes, and my condition, and you would have thought I was having a psychotic break. You would have believed him. She pointed a trembling finger at Robert, who smirked in the background. That's his weapon, Jack. He uses my diagnosis to make the truth sound like a delusion. If I told you the truth, I would have proven him right in your eyes. Jack stared at her. The logic was brutal and undeniable. He knew exactly how the world worked. He knew that a man in a $3,000 Italian suit always looks more credible to the authorities than a girl in a borrowed shirt. Despite the lie, the time he spent with Chloe, watching her turn a disaster into a game for Mia, seeing her courage in the barn, made him believe in her character more than the legal documents of the stranger in front of him. You're not taking her anywhere until I see that paperwork, Jack said, turning back to Robert, his voice hard as granite. It's public record, Mr. Miller, Robert sneered, shoving the thick envelope into Jack's chest with a dismissive motion. Conservatorship granted by the Supreme Court of New York. I control her finances, her medical decisions, and her residence. She stopped taking her medication, which is vital for her stability, and ran away. I'm just here to bring her home to safety. Jack opened the envelope. He scanned the papers. They looked terrifyingly real. Official stamps, signatures from judges, psychiatric evaluations signed by doctors with prestigious titles. It was a perfectly constructed cage. He looked at Chloe, seeing the sheer terror in her eyes, the look of someone who knows they are about to disappear into a system designed to silence them. Then he looked back at Robert's oily smile. He needed a moment. He needed a strategy. Fine, Jack said, feigning a heavy defeat, his shoulders slumping. If the law says she goes, she goes. I can't fight a court order. But she's not going out into the cold without her coat. I need to get it from the kitchen. Wait here. Jack turned and walked down the hallway, leaving Robert alone in the entryway with Chloe. As soon as Jack turned the corner, Robert's demeanor changed. He grabbed Chloe's arm, digging his fingers in painfully. Don't say a word, he hissed into her ear, his voice dripping with venom. Once we get on that plane, you're going straight to isolation until you learn to sign where I tell you to sign. Jack stopped just around the corner, out of sight, listening. He didn't go to the kitchen. He stood there, silent as a predator, pressing his back against the wall, listening. He heard Robert's voice, lowered to a conspiratorial whisper, thinking he was safely alone. Yeah, I have her. Have the jet ready. Look, increase the dosage of the sedative for the flight. I don't need her lucid. I need her hand steady enough to sign the power of attorney. Jack's blood ran cold. It wasn't just a legal dispute. It was a confession to a slow-motion murder of a soul. His fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. Just then, Jack noticed movement in the shadows of the living room, right across from where Robert was standing. It was Mia. She was hiding behind the large armchair, her small hands holding her tablet steady. The camera lens was pointed directly at Robert through the wooden slats of the stair banister. She was doing exactly what Chloe had taught her, using her video diary to record the things that mattered. Mia looked at her dad, her eyes wide and terrified, and pointed at the tablet screen. She mouthed the word, "Bad man." Jack felt a surge of pride so intense it almost brought him to his knees. He nodded once, a sharp, silent command. "Keep recording." At that moment, the blue and red flashing lights of a police cruiser reflected off the snow outside, painting the living room walls in chaotic colors. Sheriff Grady stepped onto the porch, adjusting his belt. Jack walked back into the entryway, his face a mask of calm fury, hiding the storm inside. "Jack," Sheriff Grady said, stepping inside, bringing a gust of cold air with him. "We got a 911 call about a vulnerable person being held against their will." "Robert Callahan," the uncle announced, stepping forward and extending a hand, instantly switching back to the persona of the concerned guardian. "Here is the court order, Sheriff. My niece is mentally incapacitated. She suffers from severe paranoia and delusions. She believes I'm trying to steal her money. It's a tragic case. I need to take her to a specialized facility immediately." Sheriff Grady took the papers, squinting in the dim light. He respected Jack, but he was a man of the law. "Jack, this looks legal. It's signed by a judge. If she's legally incapacitated, I can't stop him. Kidnapping a ward of the state is a felony." Chloe let out a sob that broke the tension. "Please, Sheriff." "He's lying," she begged. But she sounded exactly like what Robert said she was. Hysterical and scared. Robert smiled, a cold, victorious twisting of his lips. He pulled her roughly toward the door. "Come along, Chloe. No more scenes." "Stop," Jack said. It wasn't a shout, but the authority in his voice stopped the room cold. It was the voice of a Marine who had drawn a line in the sand. "Grady, read the order. It says she is unable to perceive reality, right? And that her fear of him stealing her money is a delusion?" "That's what it says, Jack," the sheriff confirmed, looking confused. "Okay," Jack nodded. He walked over to the armchair where Mia was hiding. He knelt down and gently took the tablet from her shaking hands. "Mia, honey, you were using your video diary like Chloe taught you, right?" Mia nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Daddy." The bad man was talking about hurting Chloe. He said he wants her to sleep so he can take her money. Robert's face went pale, the color draining from his skin. "What is this? That's a child's toy. Don't waste my time." Jack stood up and turned the tablet around, facing the screen toward the sheriff. "This toy just recorded your confession while you thought no one was listening." Jack pressed play. The audio was crisp, amplified in the silent room. "Once I get her back on the heavy sedatives, I need her signature. I don't care if she's sane. I care that she's compliant." Sheriff Grady listened, his eyes narrowing into slits. He looked at the expensive suit, then at the valid court papers, and finally at the terrified girl. The story changed in an instant. This wasn't a rescue. It was a heist. "That is illegal! You can't record me!" shouted Robert. Sheriff Grady stepped forward, his face grim. "On this property, protecting a child and a vulnerable woman isn't illegal, Mr. Callahan. But drugging a ward to steal her inheritance? That's conspiracy to commit felonies. You're done." Jack took a step closer to Robert, towering over him, using his size to block the exit. "You called her delusional," Jack growled, his voice vibrating with rage. "You tried to make her believe she was crazy. But she's the only one here telling the truth. You're not taking her to a hospital. You're going to jail." Robert panicked. He tried to bolt for the door, shoving Chloe aside, but he didn't make it 2 steps. Sheriff Grady grabbed him by the collar of his wool coat and slammed him against the wall with a satisfying thud. "Robert Callahan, you have the right to remain silent." As the sheriff dragged the screaming, protesting uncle out into the snow, Chloe stood frozen in the hallway. The nightmare that had chased her for 2 years was over. Just like that. Not with a grand battle, but with the truth captured by a little girl who wanted to be just like her. She looked at Jack. She waited for him to be angry about the lie. But Jack just walked over to her. He didn't say a word. He pulled her into a hug that felt like a fortress walls closing around her. "You heard him?" Chloe whispered into his chest. "In the hallway?" "I heard him," Jack replied, resting his chin on her head. "And Mia saw him. You taught her well, Chloe. You gave her a voice, and she used it to save you." 6 months later, the harsh white of winter was gone, replaced by the vibrant, exploding green of the Colorado summer. Iron Creek Ranch looked different. It wasn't just a place of work anymore. It was a home. There were bright purple petunias in the window boxes. Chloe's touch. The sound of laughter drifted from the backyard, mixing with the lowing of the cattle. Jack was by the fence, repairing a post. But he wasn't alone. Chloe was there, wearing work boots that actually fit, holding the nails. She looked healthy. Her eyes were bright and clear, free from the shadow of sedation and fear. Mia was running through the tall grass with Lucky, the calf they had saved that freezing night, which was now a healthy, energetic young cow. "You know," Jack said, wiping sweat from his forehead and looking at her. "The lawyer called this morning. The judge in New York finally dissolved the conservatorship completely. You have full access to your trust fund. You can go back to Manhattan, buy a penthouse, hire a staff to cook for you." Chloe stopped hammering. She looked at the vast mountains, at the little girl who called her mom by accident sometimes, and at the man who had saved her life when she was just a frozen body in the snow. She thought about the empty, cold luxury of her old life versus the warmth of this hard, beautiful life. "I could," Chloe said, smiling mischievously, "but I have a problem." "What problem?" Jack asked, concerned. "Gravity," she said, winking. "It seems to be pulling me right here, and I promised Mia I'd help her beat it." Jack smiled, a real wide smile that reached his eyes and erased years of sadness. He took her hand, his calloused fingers interlacing with hers. "Well then, I guess you're stuck with us." They weren't perfect. They had scars, secrets, and a past that hurt. But they had learned the most important lesson of all. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stands beside you when the storm hits and refuses to leave until the sun comes out. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about hope and redemption. And tell me in the comments, if you found a stranger freezing in the snow, would you have stopped? Type "I would" if you believe in kindness. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.